A nuclear weapon launched today would reach its target in 72 minutes and kill 60 to 70% of human life on Earth. In January 1995, Russian radar operators detected what appeared to be a submarine-launched ballistic missile heading toward Moscow. President Boris Yeltsin activated his nuclear briefcase and prepared to retaliate. The object turned out to be a Norwegian scientific rocket studying the aurora. We came within minutes of nuclear war over a weather experiment. I've spent months interviewing nuclear weapons scientists, former defense officials, and military commanders to understand how the nuclear threat has evolved as we enter 2025. What I discovered terrified me. The weapons are more devastating than ever before, delivery systems have made previous timelines obsolete, and the margin for error has shrunk to mere minutes. But the most dangerous change is something far more fundamental about who controls these weapons. 9 nuclear powers, the new players who changed everything. The Cold War established 5 nuclear powers recognized by the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty: the United States, Russia, the United Kingdom, France, and China. Today we have 9. This expansion represents the most dangerous shift in global security since the atomic age began. 4 additional nations have crossed the nuclear threshold, each bringing regional tensions and unpredictable decision-making into what was once a carefully managed 2-superpower standoff. India detonated its first nuclear device in 1974, calling it a peaceful nuclear explosion. Pakistan followed in 1998 after India conducted additional tests. North Korea joined in 2006 with its first underground nuclear test. Israel maintains nuclear ambiguity, but intelligence estimates suggest they developed weapons in the late 1960s. These nations fundamentally altered how nuclear deterrence works. Each new nuclear power imports its own regional conflicts into the global nuclear equation. India and Pakistan have fought 4 wars since 1947 and maintain hostile borders where nuclear-armed soldiers face each other daily. Recent expert estimates indicate Pakistan has deployed tactical nuclear warheads within 150 miles of the Indian border, according to the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist's 2022 Nuclear Notebook. The Kargil conflict in 1999 brought both nations to the brink of nuclear escalation over disputed territory most people cannot locate on a map. North Korea presents an entirely different challenge. Kim Jong-un inherited absolute power over nuclear weapons at age 27 with no checks on his authority. Intelligence analysts struggle to predict his decision-making patterns because North Korea operates as a sealed information environment. Unlike established nuclear powers with extensive command structures, North Korea concentrates nuclear authority in a single unpredictable leader who views nuclear weapons as essential to regime survival. Israel operates under a doctrine of nuclear opacity, neither confirming nor denying its nuclear capabilities. During the 1973 Yom Kippur War, Israeli leaders reportedly prepared nuclear weapons for potential use, as revealed in declassified Kissinger notes. This deliberate ambiguity complicates crisis calculations for neighboring countries and creates blind spots in global nuclear oversight. Traditional Cold War deterrence theory assumed rational actors with clear communication channels and shared understanding of escalation dynamics. That framework collapses when 9 different nuclear doctrines interact simultaneously. The United States and Soviet Union developed elaborate protocols for managing nuclear crises through decades of practice. New nuclear powers lack this institutional knowledge and crisis management experience. Nuclear decision-making now involves leaders with radically different cultural backgrounds, strategic thinking, and political constraints. American presidents face congressional oversight and alliance consultations. Russian leaders operate within different institutional frameworks. Indian prime ministers answer to coalition governments. Pakistani military leaders influence nuclear decisions alongside civilian authorities. These varied decision-making processes create unpredictable interaction effects during crises. Regional nuclear rivalries create cascading escalation risks that bypass superpower control. The Kashmir conflict between India and Pakistan operates independently of US-Russia nuclear dynamics. A border skirmish in the Himalayas could trigger nuclear escalation without involving traditional nuclear superpowers. Similarly, tensions on the Korean peninsula exist outside the framework of US-China strategic competition. Alliance structures further complicate nuclear calculations. NATO's nuclear umbrella extends American nuclear guarantees to 30 countries. If Russia attacked Estonia, would the United States risk nuclear war over a nation most Americans cannot locate? Similar questions arise with American security guarantees to Japan, South Korea, and Australia. These extended deterrence commitments create multiple pathways to nuclear conflict. Proxy conflicts between nuclear powers generate additional escalation risks. The war in Ukraine demonstrates how conventional conflicts involving nuclear powers can produce nuclear threats. Russia's nuclear saber-rattling attempts to deter Western military support for Ukraine. Iran's nuclear program advancement occurs alongside proxy conflicts with Israel across the Middle East. These indirect confrontations between nuclear powers create hair-trigger scenarios where miscalculation could trigger nuclear escalation. Intelligence agencies now monitor 9 separate nuclear programs with varying levels of transparency and accessibility. Tracking Soviet nuclear activities during the Cold War required enormous resources focused on a single adversary. Today, intelligence services must simultaneously monitor Chinese nuclear modernization, Pakistani tactical weapons deployment, North Korean missile development, and Iranian enrichment activities. This distributed monitoring challenge stretches intelligence capabilities and increases the likelihood of surprise developments. Command and control systems across 9 nuclear powers operate on incompatible technologies and protocols. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy and Khrushchev could communicate through established diplomatic channels. Today, crisis communications would require coordination across multiple time zones, languages, and political systems simultaneously. The technical challenges of maintaining reliable communication, links between 9 nuclear command authorities during a crisis exceed anything previously attempted. Nuclear weapons employment policies vary dramatically across the 9 nuclear powers. Russia maintains tactical nuclear weapons for battlefield use. Pakistan has developed short-range nuclear missiles specifically for use against Indian armored divisions. North Korea threatens preemptive nuclear strikes against perceived threats. These diverse nuclear doctrines create multiple escalation pathways that did not exist during the bipolar Cold War period. The transformation from 5 to 9 nuclear powers represents more than numerical expansion. It fundamentally alters the nature of nuclear risk by introducing multiple unpredictable variables into what was once a carefully managed strategic relationship. Each additional nuclear power exponentially increases the complexity of crisis management and raises the statistical probability of nuclear conflict. But the expansion of nuclear powers tells only part of the story. The weapons themselves have evolved into something far more devastating than anything the original nuclear club ever possessed. 2025's arsenal, weapons that make Hiroshima look like a firecracker. The bomb that destroyed Hiroshima measured 15 kilotons. Modern thermonuclear weapons measure their power in megatons. A single Russian RS-28 Sarmat missile carries warheads totaling 10 megatons of destructive force. That represents 67 times more explosive power than the weapon that killed 140,000 people in Hiroshima. Yet this monster weapon fits inside a package smaller than the original atomic bombs dropped in 1945. Physics explains this terrifying efficiency. The Hiroshima bomb used nuclear fission to split uranium atoms. Modern weapons use fusion reactions that combine hydrogen isotopes at temperatures exceeding 100 million degrees. Fusion releases exponentially more energy per unit of nuclear material. A thermonuclear weapon the size of a refrigerator can generate more explosive force than every conventional bomb dropped during World War II combined. The current global nuclear stockpile contains 12,241 warheads as of January 2025. Russia maintains approximately 6,257 warheads, while the United States possesses around 5,550. These 2 superpowers control 90% of all nuclear weapons on Earth. China accelerated its nuclear buildup and now maintains 500 warheads with projections showing continued rapid expansion. France maintains about 290 warheads including reserves with approximately 280 deployed. The United Kingdom 225, Pakistan 170, India 172, Israel approximately 90, and North Korea around 50 warheads. Within this total arsenal, 9,614 warheads remain in active military stockpiles available for immediate use. The remaining weapons await dismantlement in storage facilities. More concerning, 3,912 warheads are deployed with delivery systems including missiles, bombers, and submarines. Among deployed weapons, 2,100 warheads remain on high operational alert, meaning they can launch within minutes of receiving orders. Nuclear weapons technology advanced dramatically since the Cold War era. Modern warheads use insensitive high explosives that resist accidental detonation while maintaining devastating yield. Computer modeling replaced nuclear testing to design more efficient weapons without underground explosions. Enhanced radiation weapons concentrate lethal radiation while reducing blast damage to preserve infrastructure. Variable yield warheads allow commanders to dial explosive power from tactical levels measured in hundreds of tons to strategic levels exceeding 1 megaton. Multiple independently targetable reentry vehicles transformed nuclear warfare by allowing single missiles to destroy multiple targets simultaneously. The Russian RS-24 Yars missile carries 3 MIRV warheads that separate during flight to strike different cities hundreds of miles apart. American Minuteman III missiles deploy 3 warheads each. Chinese DF-41 missiles carry up to 10 MIRV warheads. This multiplication effect means fewer missiles can destroy exponentially more targets. Submarine-launched ballistic missiles evolved into virtually undetectable weapons platforms. Modern nuclear submarines operate underwater for months without surfacing while maintaining constant communication with command authorities. Russian Bore-class submarines carry 16 Bulava missiles, each with multiple warheads. American Ohio-class submarines deploy 20 Trident II missiles capable of striking targets 7,000 miles away. Chinese Jin-class submarines patrol with JL-3 missiles that can reach American cities from protected bastions in the South China Sea. Hypersonic nuclear delivery systems represent the newest technological leap in nuclear warfare. These weapons fly at speeds exceeding Mach 5 while maneuvering unpredictably to evade defensive systems. Russia deployed the Kinzhal hypersonic missile that can carry nuclear warheads and strike targets within 10 minutes. China tested the DFZF hypersonic glide vehicle that approaches targets at 7,000 miles per hour. The United States developed similar systems through classified programs that remain largely secret. Tactical nuclear weapons lowered the threshold for nuclear use by providing battlefield options that avoid massive civilian casualties. Russia maintains approximately 1,900 tactical warheads designed for short-range missiles, artillery shells, and torpedoes. These weapons produce yields between 1 and 50 kilotons, making them seem more usable than city-destroying strategic warheads. Pakistan developed tactical nuclear weapons specifically to counter Indian armored divisions advancing across their border. Military commanders view tactical weapons as extensions of conventional warfare rather than civilization-ending strategic weapons. Major nuclear powers implemented extensive modernization programs that expand capabilities while replacing aging systems. Russia allocated $700 billion over 20 years to completely rebuild its nuclear arsenal with new missiles, submarines, and bombers. The United States committed $1.7 trillion over 30 years to modernize every component of its nuclear triad. China constructed 350 new ICBM silos across 3 desert complexes while developing new mobile missiles and submarines. These programs suggest nuclear arsenals will grow larger and more sophisticated throughout the 2030s. The expiration of the New START Treaty in February 2026 removes the last major constraint on Russian and American nuclear expansion. This agreement limited both countries to 1,550 deployed strategic warheads and 800 deployed delivery vehicles. Without treaty restrictions, both nations could rapidly increase their deployed forces. Russia already violated treaty limits by deploying new heavy missiles that exceed agreed warhead totals. Intelligence assessments suggest both countries prepare to expand their arsenals significantly after treaty expiration. Artificial intelligence integration into nuclear command systems creates unprecedented automation in nuclear decision-making. Russian perimeter system reportedly uses computer algorithms to automatically launch nuclear missiles if Moscow gets destroyed. American early warning systems employ machine learning to identify incoming missile threats within seconds. Chinese nuclear forces integrate AI for target selection and damage assessment. These automated systems reduce human decision-making time, while potentially creating new pathways to accidental nuclear war. The combination of more nuclear powers possessing exponentially more powerful weapons creates unprecedented destructive potential concentrated in increasingly automated systems. But raw destructive power tells only part of the story. The speed at which these weapons can reach their targets has compressed the timeline for human decision-making to a terrifying degree. 90 minutes to annihilation, the new timeline of nuclear war. Modern detection systems identify launches within 5 seconds, but the complete timeline from first missile launch to global nuclear exchange spans 30 to 90 minutes depending on weapon systems and geographic positioning. Advanced satellite networks positioned 22,000 miles above Earth detect the heat signature from rocket engines before missiles clear their launch tubes. Ground-based radar systems confirm launches within 30 seconds. Yet this technological precision creates a paradox that makes nuclear war more dangerous than ever. Presidents and prime ministers receive launch notifications faster, but have less time to make decisions. The compression happens because modern missiles fly faster while carrying more destructive payloads. Intercontinental ballistic missiles travel at 15,000 miles per hour during their midcourse phase. A missile launch from Russia reaches American cities in 30 minutes. Chinese ICBMs require 33 minutes to hit targets on the US West Coast. These flight times remain constant, but new weapon systems eliminated precious minutes from the decision-making process. Submarine-launched ballistic missiles created the most dangerous compression in nuclear timelines. Nuclear submarines position themselves 200 miles offshore from major cities. Russian Bore submarines patrol 300 miles from the American coast, carrying 16 Bulava missiles. Each missile delivers multiple warheads to separate targets within 8 minutes of launch. American Ohio-class submarines maintain similar positions near Chinese and Russian coastlines. These underwater platforms eliminated the luxury of 30-minute warning times that ICBMs provide. Submarines launching from international waters reduce flight times to major population centers by 75%. New York City receives 7 minutes warning from a submarine-launched missile fired 200 miles offshore. Los Angeles gets 6 minutes. Moscow receives 8 minutes warning from an American submarine positioned in the Arctic Ocean. These compressed timelines assume perfect detection and communication systems functioning under extreme stress. Hypersonic weapons eliminated predictable flight paths that defense systems relied on for decades. Traditional ballistic missiles follow parabolic trajectories that computers calculate within minutes of launch. Hypersonic glide vehicles maneuver during flight while traveling at Mach 7. Russian Kinzhal missiles change course multiple times between launch and impact. Chinese DFZF hypersonic vehicles approach targets from unexpected angles. American officials confirmed these weapons reduce warning times to 5 minutes for some targets. The psychological pressure on leaders making nuclear decisions intensified as timelines compressed. Presidents must choose between nuclear retaliation and national destruction in the time most people need to order coffee. Sleep deprivation, medication, illness, or stress could affect decision-making during these critical minutes. Historical records show leaders struggled with nuclear decisions even when they had hours to deliberate. John Kennedy spent 13 days managing the Cuban Missile Crisis. Modern leaders get 13 minutes or less. Communication systems must transmit orders perfectly while operating under electromagnetic interference from nuclear explosions. High-altitude nuclear detonations generate electromagnetic pulses that disable electronic circuits across regions spanning 500 to 1,000 kilometers in radius, according to W-87 warhead EMP studies. Military communication networks use hardened systems designed to survive nuclear attacks, but commercial infrastructure collapses immediately. Presidential orders must reach missile commanders, submarine captains, and bomber crews through communication links that nuclear explosions actively disrupt. The cascade of events in the first 10 minutes after launch detection determines whether nuclear war remains limited or escalates to global destruction. Satellite warnings trigger automated alerts to national command authorities. Military advisors wake sleeping leaders while confirming launch authenticity. Intelligence analysts determine missile targets and probable impact times. Leaders receive briefings on response options while missiles fly toward their destinations. Each step requires flawless execution under extreme time pressure. Automated systems increasingly make preliminary decisions before human leaders get briefed. Russian perimeter system reportedly monitors communication links to Moscow and automatically launches retaliatory strikes if command centers get destroyed. Chinese early warning networks use artificial intelligence to identify incoming threats and recommend response options. American DEFCON alert levels trigger automatic military responses, including bomber dispersal and submarine alert status changes. These systems operate faster than human decision-making, but introduce new possibilities for malfunction. The compressed timeline makes accidental nuclear war statistically more likely because it multiplies opportunities for system failures and human errors. A Norwegian scientific rocket launch in 1995 triggered Russian early warning systems. Boris Yeltsin activated his nuclear briefcase and prepared to order retaliation before identifying the rocket as peaceful. Similar incidents occurred involving weather balloons, satellite malfunctions, and computer glitches. Each false alarm lasted several minutes during the Cold War. Modern compressed timelines provide seconds to identify mistakes. Technical malfunctions in early warning systems could trigger nuclear responses before humans verify threats. Computer failures at NORAD in 1979 showed 2,200 incoming Soviet missiles on warning screens. Military commanders prepared for nuclear war until technicians identified a training tape accidentally loaded into the system. The malfunction lasted 6 minutes. In 2025, similar technical failures might not allow enough time for human verification before automated systems recommend launch orders. Military officers at various command levels face independent decisions during nuclear crises. Submarine commanders lose contact with higher authority when operating underwater during attacks. Missile launch officers must verify orders received through communication systems damaged by nuclear explosions. Bomber crews require confirmation codes that might not transmit through disrupted networks. These distributed decision points multiply the human factors affecting nuclear escalation. The integration of artificial intelligence into nuclear command systems creates additional automation that operates faster than human oversight. Machine learning algorithms analyze threats and recommend responses within milliseconds. AI systems monitor global communications for nuclear-related keywords and alert patterns. Automated threat assessment programs evaluate multiple data sources simultaneously. These systems compress decision-making timelines while introducing new variables that human commanders cannot predict or control. Modern nuclear warfare unfolds in minutes rather than hours, transforming nuclear crises into rapid-fire sequences of automated responses and split-second human decisions. But these theoretical timelines assume nuclear weapons remain tools of last resort used only when national survival hangs in the balance. Recent global conflicts shattered that assumption completely. The Ukraine effect: how current wars created nuclear flashpoints. The invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022, transformed nuclear weapons from Cold War relics into active instruments of modern warfare. Vladimir Putin's explicit nuclear threats during the conflict fundamentally altered how the world calculates nuclear danger. Within weeks of launching his invasion, Putin placed Russian nuclear forces on high alert and warned that countries interfering with his operation would face consequences they had never experienced in their history. These weren't subtle diplomatic signals or veiled references to nuclear capabilities. Putin spoke directly about nuclear weapons as tools of coercion against nations supporting Ukraine. Intelligence agencies scrambled to assess whether Putin's threats represented genuine preparation for nuclear use or strategic bluffing designed to fracture Western unity. The U.S. intelligence community reached alarming conclusions in fall 2022 when classified assessments warned of real risks that Putin might order tactical nuclear weapons if Russian troops became encircled by Ukrainian forces in Kherson. This intelligence triggered an urgent diplomatic campaign to warn Moscow about the catastrophic consequences of nuclear weapon use. The fact that American analysts considered nuclear escalation over a single Ukrainian city demonstrated how fundamentally the conflict changed nuclear risk calculations. Putin's nuclear rhetoric established a new template for nuclear blackmail that exploited Western fears of nuclear war to limit military aid and constrain Ukrainian operations. Nuclear blackmail involves explicit threats to use nuclear weapons to achieve political objectives or deter adversary actions. Putin threatened nuclear responses to NATO arms deliveries, Western economic sanctions, and Ukrainian territorial gains. These threats aimed to fracture the coalition supporting Ukraine by raising the specter of nuclear escalation. The strategy demonstrated how nuclear weapons could function as diplomatic tools rather than weapons of last resort. Proxy conflicts between nuclear powers multiplied throughout the Ukraine war period, creating cascading escalation risks.